Call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is now open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you have submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of the public speak at a time. All members will be allotted 10 minutes to speak, as per our procedural bylaw. We ask that if the meeting recesses, that any callers hang up and call back in as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the Municipal Government Act, Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Could we put under, I guess, business arising, maybe 2.3.1, a clean energy improvement program? I had sent an email to council and administration in end of January, so I just thought we should talk about whether we want to move forward with researching it.
That's perfect. Thanks for bringing that forward. We'll put that under 2.31.
Yes, reblank. Just Brian from administration. We'd also like to, administration would like to add WRC board structure change process as an in-camera item under FOIP section 24.
Perfect. We'll add that to closed session. Any other additions or changes? If not, a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Kester has moved. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We had the minutes from the sorry, my tab says February 15th. I was all confused for a moment. From our February 1st regular council meeting. Did anybody see any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.11. First reading for Bylaw 2021-31. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Pardon me while I just go to the page here.
14, I think.
Thank you.
The agenda says the meeting minutes of February 15th.
Yeah, the actual minutes say the 1st. Like in the, yeah, I think it's just on the actual agenda itself. So we could have a motion to amend, like just edit, I guess, the date on the agenda.
Yeah, we could. I think the minutes being approved on the 1st should be adequate enough.
Okay.
It's the actual minutes.
Yeah, the minutes actually say February 1st. They're
Yeah.
accurate, so. That did throw me off for a second because I was like, it's that time of year though where, who knows?
Yeah, what day is it?
Exactly. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No worries.
My name's Taylor Felt, and I'm with the Planning and Development Services team, and I'll be presenting Bylaw 2021-31 for Council's consideration of first reading, and request that Council schedule a public hearing for March 22nd. This bylaw is a proposal to redesignate a 3-acre portion within Northwest 292424 west of the 4th from Agricultural General District to Country Residential District. The proposal is being made to facilitate a future subdivision application. And I'll just scroll here to the location within the county. The proposed Lot 1 is undeveloped and currently not serviced. The applicant provided technical studies that indicate the lot can be serviced. Lot 2 is developed with a dwelling, garage, several accessory buildings, and associated servicing infrastructure located on site. Lot 2 will remain designated within the Agricultural General District. Generally, the proposal aligns with the provincial policies and county plans, and therefore administration supports council in moving first reading of Bylaw 2021-31 and scheduling a public hearing for March 22nd. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council move first reading of Bylaw 2021-31. Should I read the whole thing?
I don't think, are you just moving the recommended resolution 1?
I could further move that.
We'll do it in 2.
Oh, should we do it in 2?
Yeah, okay, but you're moving how it's presented?
Yes.
Okay, I don't
Sorry.
think we need to read the entire thing as long as we're moving what's presented, or what's best practice.
We probably should read the whole
Okay,
resolution out.
perfect.
All right. I move that council move first reading of Bylaw 2021-31, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate plus or minus 1.21 hectares, plus or minus 3 acres of Lot 2, Plan 9210498 within Northwest 292424 west of the 4th, from Agriculture General District to Country Residential District, as shown on attached Schedule A, forming part of this bylaw.
Councillor Laprise has moved. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that the public hearing for Bylaw 2021-31 be scheduled for March 22nd, 2022 at 9 a.m. in Wheatland County Council chambers. If the council chambers remain closed due to public due to COVID-19, the public hearing will be held by conference call in accordance with the MGA Section 199.
Just a question to administration. Should it say remain closed or if they are closed? Because I believe we're currently open with the option.
It should say is closed.
Okay.
So we should probably reword that. We'll fix that.
Deputy Reeve
resolution.
Clausen, would you consider an amendment to remove the word remain?
So if council
And replace it
chambers
with-
is closed
Yeah.
to the public, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. We're good with that. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.12, Bylaw 2021-34.
Taylor Felt here again, presenting Bylaw 2021-34 for council's consideration of first reading and requesting that council schedule a public hearing again for March 22nd, 2022. This bylaw is proposed to implement textual changes, introduce new uses and consolidate others, modernize the language, and provide clarity to existing regulations and application requirements within the Land Use Bylaw 2016-01. The areas under consideration include wineries and alcohol production, parks and playgrounds, backyard hens and coops, backyard hives and bee supers, manufactured dwellings, landscaping, fencing and screening, and rear yard setbacks for accessory buildings specifically within the Lakes of Muirfield. Two areas that require further discussion are the proposed changes to the manufactured dwelling use and the backyard hens, coops, and beekeeping uses. Administration is proposing updated definitions and regulations to provide a distinction between manufactured dwellings, that being manufactured dwellings 1 and manufactured dwellings 2. development permit applications for older, previously owned or renovated mobile homes that do not meet the CSA A277 certification standards will now be considered as a discretionary use under the manufactured dwelling 2 definition in several districts throughout the county. And lastly, backyard hens, coops, and beekeeping are new uses proposed within the land use bylaw. The first reading amendments in front of you reflect the feedback received from community members. The bylaw proposes that hens and their coops be added as a discretionary use to the Hamlet Residential General District only, noting that administration has removed these uses from the districts that regulate the communities of Speargrass, the Lakes of Muirfield, and Eagle Lake. These proposed amendments generally align with the provincial and county plans, and with that, administration recommends that council move first reading of Bylaw 2021-34 and schedule a public hearing for March 22nd, 2022. And that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Larison.
So just with regard to the backyard hens, we had directed administration previously to ensure that the backyard hens would be kept safe from extreme cold temperatures. At a previous meeting, I believe Councillor Kester moved that. I don't know that that's been done yet or not. And the other thing I would mention is at the ASB convention, I talked to some people from Strathcona County who had gone through the backyard hen thing, and they had decided that it was not a good idea. So I wonder if it might not be a good idea for administration to talk to them and see what their rationale was too before we go too far down this backyard hen. As I've mentioned before, chickens are notorious for carrying salmonella and campylobacter bacteria. Campylobacter is a reportable disease from Alberta Health Services, and I think we just need to be careful with that.
I did see some
Yeah, it's in there.
just sort of conditions on the environment that the hens would be kept in.
saw
On
that.
page 29, specifically referenced fully enclosed, weatherproof. There was another section as well that spoke to it. And then typically something like the education program that we had discussed would be implemented, like as we're implementing the changes to the land use bylaw, administration would draft some kind of communications sort of to include, when the amendments to the land use bylaw are, if they're completed, if they go through, then that education piece would follow that as that's being implemented. That's where you could address a lot of like the potential health concerns, strict attention to care and cleanliness and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's totally enclosed just means, I mean, you could effectively put up studs in a tin cover and it's totally enclosed. That doesn't mean it's warm enough for the chickens in the winter.
Yeah, I'll find the other section, or if administration
And
has
just
it.
as a thing,
31.
Oh, thanks, John.
when I was actively farming, we
general
raised 200 chickens a
limits.
year and had 25 to 30 hens all the time. So I kind of know what I'm talking about with this.
Yeah, oh no, I don't doubt that you do, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Through the chair, I kind of wonder if this conversation would be better suited for the public hearing or after the public hearing is complete.
That's a good point, yeah.
So I think right now the potential resolution that council may consider is the first reading of the bylaw. And just to note procedurally, after the first bylaw, or after the first reading is completed, and then the public hearing occurs, and then after that, the second reading of the bylaw can be accepted with amendments, or it can be defeated at that point. So I think that this conversation is an excellent conversation that should be completed at or before, or at or after the public hearing is complete.
Yeah, excellent point.
And I would agree with that.
Councillor Kester and then Councillor Laprise.
I notice in one paragraph there, it says the majority of responses received from residents living in Speargrass and Lakes of Muirfield were in opposition. And that in response to this feedback, administration removed provisions for backyard hens and beekeeping in Speargrass, Lakes of Muirfield, and Eagle Lake. Did you receive the letters from Rosebud? There was a letter to in opposition of.
Through the chair to Councillor Kester, that there was one response from a community member living in Rosebud who was in opposition as well.
Okay.
Councillor
So that'll
Laprise.
be held over to the public hearing then, or would that letter be available then? Or do they have to resubmit? I'm just...
Through the chair, we've collected all of the responses that we received and notified those who submitted them that they may become part of the public record. So those can be made available.
I would prefer if they were made available at the public hearing.
Madam Reeve, they will be, to Councillor Kester.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Laprise?
Just had a couple questions. This is for my own learning, really. So 7.5, we talk about animal controls, and it says no farm animals allowed on parcels within a hamlet designation. Is a chicken or a hen not a farm animal?
And that's whether we would require this amendment to remove them from that definition, like to make an exception, essentially. Is that?
So we say that, and then we make an exception? Is that how it kind of comes across?
It would go under that discretionary use where they would have to come and do a development permit. It's just sort of delineating them from other farm animals, which are addressed in the land use bylaw under hamlet.
Okay. And then I also just had a question about hens over 18, what is it, 8 weeks or something or other? Like, are they not allowed to have chicks? Or how does that work?
Through the intent behind that amendment, from some of the conversations we've had with other communities and the planners who are implementing similar projects, is that after the chick phase, when they're no longer cute, they're often abandoned and they do take up quite a bit of space in the local SPCAs. So it seemed to be a standard across many municipalities to not allow the chicks and take them out a little bit into their youth.
So you have to buy them already, like, past the chick stage. Oh, I see. That's very interesting. Okay.
To get the chicks.
Somebody else has to raise them, I guess, until then. Okay.
Any other questions? And as administration pointed out, we'll sort of just reference questions around the proposed first reading. Debate we will reserve for after the public hearing. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Just here, Councillor Kester mentioned the one about the Lakes of Muirfield and Speargrass, but it says and Eagle Lake. So what is and Eagle Lake? Because when I hear Eagle Lake, I think of a lake.
It's a community.
We're talking about the one at the north end, or?
Oh, gosh.
Is it definite?
On the west side.
Yeah.
On the west side.
This, through the Reeve, this was based on land use districts, and the Eagle Lake, when we look at its potential build out, would be more of a dense urban community.
Gotcha.
So we just removed it, as we heard no comment for or against the proposed amendments.
The lots are more consistent with what you would see in Speargrass or Lakes of Muirfield, whereas some of our other hamlets have larger, a little bit larger lots.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Baker?
I'll move that council have first reading of bylaw 2021-34, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending bylaw use number 2016-01 as shown on the attached Schedule A.
Questions or discussion? Councillor Kester, you had a
I
question?
just wasn't quite finished with my with that paragraph.
Okay.
How is it that we have 3 communities excluded from the first reading because of responses? Did we get requests from the other communities that they wanted it?
Yes.
Yes.
Like from all the other hamlets, did they say they wanted to have these chickens? I'm thinking it's...
Perhaps administration could review the engagement process that was done prior to this being brought forward.
For sure. Through the Reeve, we tried to front load as much of the engagement as we could before bringing proposed amendments. We wanted to make sure that based on community response, we were tweaking them appropriately in creating these amendments. Most of the responses in opposition, again, were Speargrass, the Lakes of Muirfield, no comment from the Eagle Lake community. We did have interest and written response from resident living in Clooney and Gleason, but largely the traditional hamlet areas were silent on the proposed amendments for the bees and hens. And in response to the large opposition, I believe received close to 40 responses from Lakes of Muirfield and Speargrass. That's why we removed them from the proposed amendment.
not entirely happy with. If a couple communities asked for it, I'd be more in favor of having those communities have it. If nobody asked for it, I'm hesitant on including them.
We can debate it further for sure after the public hearing, if first reading passes. One thing that I'm keeping in my mind is that because it is a discretionary use, it would come, like a development permit would come forward, and there would be engagement where adjacent landowners would have an opportunity to specifically address concerns about a specific development permit regarding keeping hens in a specific area. So I really like that that's included versus having it as permitted and just allowed.
In response to that, we kind of set a precedent here of excluding a couple communities because they didn't want it. But I haven't heard any communities outside of a couple that want it. So it works both ways, be equal, right? So I would caution in the future to be I don't know what the proper word would be. Like if we're going to exclude somebody because they don't want it, why are we including others because they didn't say they wanted it? I could say numerous things. Well, to my impression, we always make amendments to a bylaw because there's an overwhelming desire to have it included in the district, right? So we got 2 districts that didn't want it. We have 3 districts that don't, so you're out, and the rest are silent. You're in. Well, why aren't they out? It's contrary to why we do a bylaw. We don't do bylaws because you want out of something. You do bylaws because you want in something. And that's my contention. They didn't ask for it. Why are we including it?
That was the genesis of this, and I was one of the councillors that brought this forward because I did have residents within my division who have requested to both keep hens and bees. I recall Councillor Bigger, you've also had requests. I don't recall if anyone else has in their divisions. Councillor Wilson may have previously, but we would have to double check that. But I have had a number of people that have asked, and it is becoming more common, even within urban cities and cities, even towns, to permit this. Keeping in mind that we can debate this engagement was shared with council previously, I think perhaps in a committee of the whole, if I recall correctly.
Yes, just through the Reeve to council, we had an extensive engagement. Planner 1 led that, and it was countywide. So well done on that engagement process. I think another benefit as well to this, and to your point, Councillor Kester, it does, right? So sometimes when you have, to Taylor's point, we front-ended a lot of that. We heard a lot of public sentiment that was generated from both of the communities. So of course, you can exclude to remove that public sentiment and maybe the consensus in both communities prior to kind of eliminating that at the public hearing. However, I think the benefit of this moving forward is that we do have that public hearing. There is the ability after the public hearing, obviously the feedback will be shared. And of course, there is the ability at council's discretion to include hamlets, to remove hamlets. That's the beauty of that. So I think to your point, there is that ability. We're just really at the early stage. And then once we get to that public hearing, I think there's the ability, obviously, to read the fulsome report, read the feedback, hear from your constituents over the next 30 days, and then we can kind of have that conversation and review that then.
Yes, and
The reason why I'm a little more sensitive to this, when we passed the bylaw that there be no more livestock or in the hamlet. I have a hamlet that has always, probably for 100 years, has had horses in it, and I didn't even think that's what we were banning, right? So now we've got a hamlet that historically had that, and that was an oversight on my part. So I'm being a little more vigilant in the process to make sure it's what the people actually want in specific areas, not, oh, the whole county gets it type of thing. And I don't know if there's anything we can do for that particular hamlet to allow the horses back in, or I know both places have been sold and they don't want nobody's asked for it yet, but there is 3 acres there. What are they going to do with it, right? It's historically been like that. So that's my reasoning. If we're going to pinpoint communities like this, I'm going to include them back at some point. I don't know if they're going to come back and ask for it or not. We'll see.
Deputy Reeve Clausen, did you indicate you wanted to speak?
I just, in regards to community engagement, I know in Muirfield I had lots of discussion from residents. There was lots of back and forth and lots of questions from people, and I feel confident that they're excluded for a reason. There was lots of support there for that reason, so I can speak to that. But yeah, I think we should move forward and get the public engagement going on, and then we can discuss it further.
Just to the Reeve as well, if I know this isn't the next motion is to actually schedule the public hearing. However, if council would like us, administration, to do more due diligence on public engagement, we can definitely do that as well. And we don't have to schedule that public hearing today. We can defer that public hearing until April or something like that, or May, and go from there. But yeah, if council's not satisfied with the level of engagement that administration did.
I was satisfied when it was completed and when we discussed it in committee of the whole, recognizing that there is further opportunity for residents to engage in the public hearing when the land use bylaw amendments are brought forward. But certainly if any councillor is not comfortable with that, we can look at another process. But I know administration did put a significant amount of work into this engagement. I believe a mail out went out to every ratepayer in the county, if I recall.
Through the Reeve, to the Reeve, sorry. We, in the fall, we actually prepared a survey that you could access using your mobile phone, or would direct you back to the county website. And it did gauge, the intent was to gauge the tolerance to your neighbor having chickens, hens, or bees on the property. And we'd be happy to circulate those direct responses and feedback based on community. Again, it is still available on the county website.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think as long as all of that is captured when we reconsider this, if first reading is passed, then we can review all of that again when we're looking at these amendments. Councillor Baker.
So can you target the hamlets then? Because if we're going to take Muirfield and Speargrass and Eagle Lake out, we will just target the people that would be affected by this bylaw. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get Speargrass or Muirfield again, and it will mark a different result.
Well, what we would be circulating for the public hearing would be the amendment as proposed, if this passes, as proposed here.
Okay, yes, thank you.
So councillors of the area for those communities, yourself, you, myself, Deputy Reeve Clausen, if anybody sort of didn't take note of those exceptions, you could point them out.
Yep.
As well, if there are communities that would like an exception, then that can be brought forward. The challenge, of course, is you may have mixed engagement in some communities, and then you have to weigh that. But we can deal with all of that at the public hearing. And these would, if I understand correctly, administration will be doing, it's sort of a bulk amendment to the land use bylaw. So all of the amendments would be circulated, and of course the entire county would be open to engage, because many of them, all of the other aspects of the bylaw amendments impact the entire county. So yes, that was very wordy. My apologies. Any other questions regarding first reading? Yes, Councillor Larson.
So how many hamlets have actually asked for this then?
Aye.
I have 2.
3. And how many hamlets are in total?
We have 24 distinct communities, 12 which are officially recognized as hamlets. Ardnode, Carsland, Chancellor, Cheadle, Cluny, Dallam, Gleason, Lyleton, Nimica, Nightingale, Redland, and Rosebud. And only 9 of those are on the municipal affairs profile. And then we also have rural community nodes like Strangmere, Eagle Lake, Baintree, Tudor, Stobart. There's a whole bunch. Profit, which we all learned about during an application last year.
So there's 3 out of 12 that want it. Would it be better to make it specific to those 3 out of 12? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
I think we could look at that when we're debating. That's a great question. We could look at that when we're looking at second reading, after the public hearing. Councillor Eichert?
Madam Reeve, I would
Yes.
recommend that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
To
you
the
so
point
much.
of, there is the ability, obviously, at public hearing, reviewing it, hearing feedback, reading the feedback, and at that point, it's council's debate and discussion with respect to specific uses that we're going. This is an omnibus amendment, so we have multiple uses that we've captured over the previous 12 months or so, and obviously, you can parse it out and based on the feedback.
Good. Thanks for the clarification, Matt.
Good question. Councillor Eichert?
Just because we haven't heard, I know there's nothing been said about Cheadle, but I know Cheadle has therapy chickens. So this, in fact, may make the people that have therapy chickens maybe easier on them because they don't have to jump through all the hoops that if they have a couple of birds, then it has backyard. So just because I haven't got a formal letter from Cheadle doesn't mean that they're not interested in this process. So saying you can have a bird here and you can't have a bird there, I think is probably the wrong way to go.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day when this comes forward, assuming first reading passes. Looking forward to that discussion. Any other questions regarding first reading? All in favor? Motion is carried. Whoever's going to make the public hearing, if you can just remove the word remain as well. It'll save me.
Okay, I'll move that a public hearing for bylaw 2021-34 be scheduled for March 22nd, 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Wheatland County Council Chambers. If the council chambers is closed to the public due to COVID-19, the public hearing will be held by conference call in accordance with the MGA Section 199.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.13, Bylaw 2022-04.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of council. Chris Perman, Senior Peace Officer, here to present Bylaw 2022-04. And if we may just indulge me 1 second before I begin my presentation. I have not had the opportunity since this council was formed back in October to bring the remainder of the peace officer staff in to reintroduce to the returning councillors and introduce to the new councillors. So I believe it would be a good time to do that. So I'd just like to introduce Officers Dean Young and Jordan Meyer. They obviously make up the complement of our peace officer department, providing services to the county and our soon-to-be 3 villages for bylaw enforcement, traffic enforcement, and anything else that we need to do. So.
Good morning, and on behalf of council, thank you for your service to the county. We appreciate it.
And thank you.
Not everybody appreciates it all the time, but we do appreciate it.
And I thank you for that indulgence, and I will now proceed with Bylaw 2022-04, which is an amendment to the traffic control bylaw schedule. And the reason behind this is that the June 15th, 2021 meeting, based on resolution CM 2021-06-58, directing administration to work with Canadian Pacific Railway to eliminate the Carsland whistle at the Range Road 260 Barstow Street in Carsland. And part of that was to have the speed limit reduced on that section between Highway 24 and Railway Avenue East, reduced to 40 kilometers an hour as per the Watt report, which is attached. And the request is to have that portion of the road speed limit reduced to 40 kilometers an hour to come in line with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Priest.
I don't know if this is the right time or place for it, but I wondered if Carsland would consider having all of their speed limits reduced to 40. Kind of, that's the way things are going in Calgary and in other places that
I'm looking at the counselor to the area.
I mean, this was because of the whistle. I don't think there's a problem with 50 with the rest of Carsland. I think we'd have to go do another community engagement.
If I may, through the chairs. Sorry, Councilor Berry.
So I think if it's changed to 40, and if we hear that maybe it should go all through town, then maybe we can actually bring it back. But I just did like to get this far, this kind of done. But if I do hear anything else, I can just bring that back.
And through the chair, if I may, Carsland's unique. We actually, we're going to have 3 speed limits in Carsland if this resolution passes. The 40 kilometer an hour speed limit through there, and then the east side of the hamlet, east of Main Street, is actually 50 kilometers an hour, and then on the west side of the hamlet, other than Railway Avenue, is actually 30 kilometers an hour, including a playground, a playground zone and a school zone. So, at some point,
It's
there
a
could
mixture.
be it is quite
I
a
would
mixture.
say it was all planned very, very well, but it's a mixture of residential,
Absolutely.
business.
And is definitely something that can be considered if that is the wishes.
Yeah. And this, to be honest, I think this 40 where it's at, it'd be really hard to get to 40 in that spot. But we gotta make sure that we follow it in order to get the whistle taken away. So with that, I'll move that council provide first reading of bylaw 2022-04 traffic control bylaw schedule amendment bylaw being a bylaw that amends Schedule B of bylaw 2019-20.
Any questions or discussion? Councillor Larson.
So just to be clear, at the end of the day, it's CP's decision to remove the whistle or not? I mean, it's their track. I'm just curious.
I guess
Yes.
to defer to WCO.
Okay, perfect. Through the Reeve, Councillor Larson. So there was an extensive process with respect to this. There was multiple layers to this. What first had to happen was we did the WAT report. Then we brought that to council, and we needed a resolution from council to support going to CP to request that it be removed. And CP had to do an internal, whatever that process may be, over the last 12 months and come back and say, we've satisfied all the requirements. We did a report. We got the resolution. We obviously have the ability to change the speed limits to adhere to the safety provisions in the report. And then we were able to get to this point.
Okay. And that's what I read in the report. I just wanted to be clear that that's what we were doing. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
No question, just comment. I want to say thank you to the councillor of the area. I know she's been working on this for many, many years, and staff as well. It's taken a long time to get here, and I know the community wanted this too, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge change, like a quality of life. It really does impact quality of life, is what we heard, I think, even when we've been in the community. So,
And businesses.
yes, absolutely. Any other questions? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that council provide second reading of bylaw 2022-04.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that permission be granted to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2022-04.
Any questions or debate? All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
Just looking through here. Sorry, I didn't notice it before. But the Rocky Ford Road, there's a playground zone in between there. They're not? Like an old school zone?
Through the chair, I don't believe so. The playground zone is directly within the hamlet of Rockyford. We do have an 80-kilometer
village.
zone just by Tudor that reduces it. But as far as I can recall, the only one on the Rockyford Road is within the village.
I can't say that because there's a playground right there in the old school site.
Yeah, and that is directly in the village, and so that speed limit is controlled by the village through their bylaws.
Even though it's the Rocky Ford Road?
Yeah, it's
That's ours?
It's kind of a unique scenario, right? Because it's our road within a village. I can look into if anybody else maybe we can get some clarification from General Manager of Transportation as well. But to determine who actually sets it. My understanding is we don't set the playground zone, or never set the playground zone in that community. It was done by the village.
Yeah, because I just noticed in here there's an 80-kilometer speed limit through Rocky Ford on that road.
Well, and again, the speed limit would have been through the village would have been governed by the village through their bylaw.
Okay, so why do we have it at 80?
It's 80 up to the
Into
village.
Rocky
It's up to the village boundary, and then 80 north of.
Okay. Now I can't find it.
Yeah.
Now I know where it is now. Okay, thanks.
I'm just going to ask, feel free to bring it back. We'll just bring it back outside of addressing this issue in Carsland.
Controlled by Rocky Ford, I'm fine with it.
Okay, if there's any issue, just bring it forward.
Yeah, I don't care.
Looking for a motion for third reading.
Fourth reading?
Tom already
For-
did that.
Oh, yeah, for third reading.
Oh, you moved. I said carried unanimously for permission to hold third. Shannon, do we have a motion for third? Okay, looking for a motion for third. That's what my note said.
So are we looking for this? That council, I move that council provide third and final reading of bylaw 2022-04.
Perfect. Councillor Laprise has moved. Open the floor for questions or discussion. All in favor? Motion is carried. That's an exciting day.
Thank you for your time
Long
today.
time.
Thank you very much.
You said government moves slow.
We will move to 2.14, Bylaw 2022-05, Code of Conduct Bylaw.
Good morning, Council. Tracy from Administration. I'm here to present Code of Conduct amendments to Bylaw 2022-05. So recently we had our bylaw reviewed by Legal Counsel with respect to pecuniary interest. We just wanted to ensure that we were accurate and up to date with current legislation. So as you can see in the first copy, we have notes from Legal Counsel about any changes. I do want to bring your attention to, it would be section 15.5C of the bylaw, where it talks about an investigation team. So legal is recommending that the CAO not conduct investigations with respect to complaints, just as it council is the CAO's employers. And instead, there's two bullets that were left, and that was that councillors who are not involved in the complaint could investigate, or a third party be hired. So I wanted to ensure that council was aware of that amendment and suggestion from Legal Counsel. And you'll note on the second copy, it's the clean version. There is in fact just the council that does the investigations, or third party can be hired. So with that, are there any questions regarding the amendments to this bylaw?
Councillor Larson?
I've read through this pretty extensively, and I agree with all of the amendments, but the question I would have is C, when we're having councillors do the investigation, other than probably myself, has anybody here had formal incident investigation training? Like, should we be saying that councillors can investigate incidents without having any training? Is a question, like, I'm just wondering, if we had an investigation and let's just say it came out to something bad and we got a third party review and they say, okay, Councillor Laprise, Councillor Kester, and Councillor Eichert, what are your qualifications for doing an incident investigation? What would we say? Like, I'm just wondering, I mean, I could certainly defend mine, but I'm just wondering, do we want to even have councillors do it? I guess is the question I'd like to put to the group.
Yeah, and that's also why I'm bringing it up and pointing it out to council to get your feedback.
Deputy Reeve Clausen, and then Councillor Eichert, were you?
Yeah, I can.
No? Okay, Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Being that I've gone through this before, I think some of the things might be appropriate to review in-house for cost reasons and things like that. Most of it may be how things are interpreted, and basically finding if there's value and what and how to proceed, because we're public bodies. So what an investigator proposes and what we would propose could be two totally different things. So I think it kind of fits whatever you're dealing with at the time. As far as investigation, I've been trained in that years and years ago, but I wouldn't say I'm sharp on it, but we're the ones that are dealing with it. So I'm okay with it, but it's up to council. But sometimes it's uncomfortable for us to have to do. We have to work with each other after too, right? So
Yeah.
I know other municipalities it's been going on for months, half a year or more, and costs substantially a lot of money to go through it, and it's may not get what you need at the end of it. So I don't know if that helps or makes it muddier.
Other questions or debate? Just a couple of housekeeping things and then a comment. And if I had read this earlier, I would have provided this in advance, but I've had a number of just personal circumstances, so I was reading this late last night. But on page 86, I don't think applicant is defined, but I do not believe it's referenced within the bylaw. I did do a search. I believe these definitions that I'll outline were in the section that was removed around, I think it was around bias, and it was sort of around going to open houses and that type of thing. So there's just a few definitions. Applicant, develop, so 3.3, 3.12, develop, 3.13, developer, 3.17, special interest group. I think we could remove the definitions because they're not referenced in the bylaw. There's a chance I missed them, but I did do an actual search and it should have picked it up. It did pick them up within the definitions.
All right, thank you. We can do that.
And then I agree with you, Councillor Larson. I would be in support of removing, I'm just going to the next part. I had the same thought. Yeah, I'm just looking on the clean copy, trying to find it. Yeah, so page 92. I would be in support of removing 14.5A. To Deputy Reeve Clausen's point, I would support keeping 14.3, where council may refuse to undertake an investigation, because I think at that point you could use sort of your general skills to assess whether there's a valid complaint or whether it's vexatious or frivolous or that type of thing. So you still have a mechanism to sort of not have to go to investigation every time a potential code of conduct issue is raised, but council can deliberate on that. And then I think I do support the idea of hiring an external third-party investigator. I think it's objective and adds validity to the process. Yes.
That's and thanks for clarifying that, Amber, because that's really what I was pointing to, because we have that ability in 14.3 where as council we can decide what needs to be done. And then if we get to the point where we say, this is beyond our bounds, then we just move to a third party investigation. I think that provides a lot more clarity on this, to where if we get to the point where we say we need a formal investigation, then it has to be a third party. But 14.3 gives council the ability to say, look, we can go from this is frivolous or this is something we can handle ourselves and we don't need a formal investigation. That would be my thoughts on it.
I guess the only thing I'm just looking. 14.3, I guess we should just be careful. The current phrasing is council may refuse to undertake an investigation if the complainant fails or refuses to provide the information set out in section 15.2. So we will have to be cautious because there's not a provision within that for council to say, to assess the complaint on merit, if you will. I know that's not perfect language, but you could have a complaint that outlines all of the indicated things, but all of council could completely disagree, that the bylaw was contravened, for example, even though there is a noted section that perhaps a ratepayer is alleging, or it could be, I don't even know who we all take complaints from. Could be a member of the public. It could be somebody who doesn't even live in Wheatland County. It could be raising a code of conduct. And if we're not careful, we might be forced into conducting an investigation that's not necessary. So, yes.
Just wondering, is that when it references 15.2 there, Tracy, is that perhaps something that was a reference in the unrevised document that didn't get changed to reference?
I can definitely check that. I'm looking at 14.5, and at the end of A, it does say, so upon being advised of a complaint, council shall appoint a team which consists of, but it says and or. Because it says and or, does that provide council with, at that point, to decide, you know what, we're going to hire a third party investigator consultant?
It definitely does. I was contemplating removing A, and then you wouldn't have that.
Okay.
Because that would be if you were setting counsel as the investigative team.
Yeah.
Then they could go on to determine, like through the investigation process, under 14.7, if that were counsel, they could determine that the complaint is frivolous or vexatious.
Yeah.
And I see why it might be written that way, because you may want to do some investigation prior to determining that, so that you're doing due process, and perhaps counsel is capable of something like that. So maybe there is merit in leaving it as presented, and then counsel could be the investigative team who could then deem that the complaint was vexatious or frivolous or whatever the language is.
Okay, so 15.2 in the current bylaw is a complaint must be in writing. So that is something that will need to be corrected in the current bylaw. Just the number.
Yeah, 15.2 in the old one, Tracy?
Yeah, this is the current one.
15.2
Yeah.
in the new one says this bylaw repeals the Code of Conduct bylaw 2021-32 upon third reading of the bylaw.
Yeah, that's
That was
correct.
why I needed the clarification.
Yep. No, you're correct. That reference needs to be changed.
And I think just further to Scott's comment, I mean, we all have to work together afterwards. So if it's an independent investigation, it removes the bias. I think, if we decide it's got to that stage, then I really think it's, in the interest of us all being able to work together afterwards, let's have somebody that's not involved do this. And then then I can't say, well, Councillor Chester said this about me, or whatever the case may be, right?
So the current amendments that we would be looking at would be just the housekeeping, just removing those definitions. And then just looking for if there's council direction or consensus around the benefit of leaving it as written under 14.5. There's been some discussion around 14.5. I think now I'm changing my position. I think I would leave 14.5A in, and I think it would be at council's discretion to only exercise that if after the complaint was received, it's like, okay, we need to look into this and confirm, but it seems that there may not be merit to this. It may be vexatious or frivolous. Councillors who aren't involved could then look at the complaint and bring a recommendation back to council to dismiss it without hiring a third party. That it could, conceivably even be investigated during a closed session, like obviously not by any councillors who are involved in the complaint. And I'm just thinking in terms of, there have been instances in the province where code of conduct issues have significantly impacted council operations and proceedings, especially if it's long and drawn out. And so I don't mind leaving that in there just as a way to deal with things in an efficient manner. And cost effective as well, because if you were forced by the bylaw to hire an investigator for every complaint, it could become quite costly, even a preliminary. Thoughts?
I agree with you, Amber. I think that leaving us in gives us the opportunity to decide just whether it requires a third party or not. And I think there are some complaints that might, just be deemed frivolous from the outset.
And then the other revision would be, is it 14.16 would be removed, is that correct?
I have 14.3 that I just need to correct the reference to section 15.2. So I have definition.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I
yes.
need to fix that reference.
Right, yes, thank you. Sorry, I thought we had a redundancy, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
a separate matter.
And then we'll keep 14.5A as is. We'll have A and B.
I think it's the cleanest way because I don't know that I would want to do it without leaving some kind of an investigation, but council would have discretion to determine what that investigation looks like. I mean, the investigation could be reviewing the complaint, reviewing the code of conduct, and then making a recommendation. At the end of the day, council is the decision maker. That's one of the challenges with code of conduct issues, and this has been raised provincially as well, because at the end of the day, council is the decision maker. Any other questions?
Sorry, there was reference to something about in writing. Are we taking that out?
No, it was just the,
Thank you.
just in 14.3, it would say set out in section 14.2 rather than 15.2. Just basically a typographical edit. Any other questions or?
If I could ask council, if they choose to provide the readings, if they could, at the end of the recommended motion, add as amended.
Shanna, do we have a motion for first reading? No, I didn't think so. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council provide first reading of the Code of Conduct Bylaw 2022-05 as amended.
Open the floor for debate. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Make the motion that council provides second reading of bylaw number 2022-05 as amended.
Open the floor for debate.
If we amended the bylaw on first reading and we didn't amend it again, it's already amended, is it not? So if you say as amended again, it sounds like it was amended again, but in reality it wasn't. I'm just wondering, does that make sense that we would just pass second reading because it's already amended?
Yeah, so as long as you, on the first resolution, write as amended, the others you don't need to, but I'm not going to get
excellent
too picky.
point.
Yeah.
Good point.
I can take that off.
Okay, friendly amendment. Friendly amendment removed as amended. Excellent. Any other questions or debate? All in favor? Motion is carried.
Move to provide permission.
Okay, Councillor Kester has moved to grant, or moved permission to be granted to hold third and final reading. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
I move that council provide third and final reading of bylaw 2022-05.
Councillor Bigger has moved third and final reading. Open the floor for debate. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move to 2.42. Yes, sorry. We will take 5 minutes enough. We'll reconvene at 10:05.